All right, let's talk about something really important today. What does it actually mean to use power the right way? And I'm not just talking about corporate or political power. We're diving into spiritual authority, the kind of power that's believed to come from God, and how easily it can be misunderstood.
So, let me ask you this right off the bat. Imagine, just for a second, you were given incredible power. You could change things, influence people, maybe even perform miracles. What's the very first thing you would do? Would you fix a huge problem? Would you help someone you love? Or, and be honest, would there be a little part of you that wanted to prove you actually had it? It's a tough question, but it gets right to the heart of what we're talking about today.
And really, the entire idea for this explainer hinges on this one verse from the Apostle Paul. He says the power he got from the Lord was for edification, not destruction. Now that word, edification, that is our key. It literally means to build something up, to improve it, to make it better. It's a blueprint that tells us exactly what divine power is for.
But, that purpose can get twisted pretty easily. And that leads us to our first big idea, the danger of treating power like it's some kind of stage performance.
You see, the second someone feels like they have some spiritual authority, this temptation almost always shows up, the urge to show off. It's this deep-seated need to prove to everyone, hey, look at me, I'm the real deal. But the moment the focus shifts from helping people to proving yourself, well, that's when you start walking down the wrong path.
And I mean, look at these examples. They're so specific. We're talking about ministers who might, make people fall over just to prove the anointing is flowing, or doing all these crazy acrobatics during a deliverance session. It becomes more about the spectacle. Even weird stuff like handing a microphone to someone who's supposedly possessed so everyone can hear the demon. It turns a sacred moment into a circus. The performance becomes the point, not the person's freedom.
Okay, so if that's the wrong way to do it, what's the right way? This takes us right back to that core idea, the true intended purpose of power.
So let's just lock this in. Edification. It is 100% constructive. Seriously, think about a construction worker. Their whole job is to take tools and materials and build something strong, something useful. That's exactly how this kind of power is supposed to be used, as a tool to build people up, to bring healing, to offer guidance, never ever to tear them down. And this chart just lays out the difference perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the misuse. It's all about showing off, punishing people, destroying things. It's totally driven by the ego. But on the other side, the right use is about something so much bigger. It's about glorifying God, bringing joy, and breathing life into dead situations. The focus just completely shifts away from me and onto others and onto God.
Now, talking about this in theory is great, but stories are what really make it stick. So let's dive into two really powerful case studies from the Bible that show this whole principle in action.
All right, so for our first story, picture this. Jesus and his disciples are on a journey. They send some guys ahead to a Samaritan village to get things ready for their arrival. But the villagers, they basically slam the door in their face. They refuse to welcome them. It's a huge insult.
And check out this reaction from the disciples James and John. It is instant, it is angry, and it is totally destructive. Their first instinct is, hey, you insulted us, let's use our power to call down fire from the sky and just wipe them off the map. I mean, that is the classic temptation right there, using power for revenge.
But Jesus' response, it cuts right through all of that and gets back to the main point. He basically tells them, you've completely missed it. He reminds them that his entire mission, the very reason he has power, isn't to destroy lives, but to save them. He chooses to build, not to burn. And that's the lesson. Even when you're insulted, the purpose of power doesn't change. It's always to build.
Now, our second case study, wow, this one is even more intense. You have a guy named Stephen who's described as being full of faith and power, and he's being stoned to death for what he believes. And guess who's standing there watching and approving of the whole thing? A man named Saul, a famous persecutor of the early believers.
So in his last moments, with rocks flying at him, Stephen could have cursed Saul, he could have asked God to bring judgment down on him, but he doesn't. Just like Jesus, he chooses another way. He chooses to forgive, not to get revenge. He chose edification, building up over destruction.
And here's the absolutely incredible result of that choice. Because Stephen chose to build instead of destroy, he left the door open for Saul's future. And the man who literally held the coats for his murderers goes on to become the Apostle Paul, maybe the single most influential Christian in history. That is the ultimate picture of edification. An enemy wasn't destroyed,
He was saved and built into something amazing.
So what do we learn from these two incredible stories? Well, it all comes down to a very simple but very profound idea. Build, don't destroy.
You see, the big picture here is that God's plan is always tilted towards salvation, towards blessing. So any power we have, any influence, whether it's with our kids, at our jobs, or in our friend group, it should be plugged into that same goal. Our influence is a tool we get to use to help build people up, not tear them down.
So, look, if you walk away with just one thing today, let it be this. God's power is, at its core, a force for life. It's for saving people and for blessing them. It is never, ever a tool for our own ego, for showing off, or for hurting others. Period.
And that kind of brings this whole thing back to you, doesn't it? You might not be calling down fire from heaven, but we all have influence. We all have power in our words, in our actions, in our relationships. So the real question is, how are you using yours? Today, with the influence you have, what can you build?